All right, Garrett Johnson here with Mark Hensby. And Mark, I think about, we all get bad breaks in golf, right? And, you mentioned some of them off mic just a minute ago. For golfers at home, what do we do and process in real time as it happens?
Yeah, there's not much you can do. The gusty winds out here today, you can only hit your best shot possible and see what happens. But, your second hole, I birdied one, I got off to a nice start, and then two, I had a beautiful 6-iron. I just trying to cover the right bunker, and I got the biggest gust ever, and it came up probably 20 yards short of where it should have, and it was buried in the bunker. So, but you just got to roll with it. That's what's going to happen to a lot of guys out here today. So, yeah.
Well, I'm just curious, like when going way back, you were talking about birdieing the first hole here. How about making your first birdie ever? Now, is it true that in your very first round of golf, you actually made a birdie early on?
Yeah, I was left-handed. So it was pretty funny. Yeah, I was on the 12th hole at Tamworth Golf Club, which is now the third hole, I guess. But yeah, it was left-handed. I played with a kid down the street, and I hit it on with a 7-iron and holed about a 12-foot putt. So yeah, pretty funny.
I mean, just celebrate after that, or you didn't even know what you're doing if your first round of golf.
To be honest, I had no idea what I was doing. I was just having fun.
If you weren't a golfer going way back, what would you have done instead? I know there's motorsports is a passion.
Yeah, mate, if I could have had the money, and I would have loved to ride GP, motorcycles, road bikes, race. I would love to have done that other than this, that's for sure.
So, who is it? Is it Nick Dunn or Luke
Mick
Dunn?
Doohan.
Oh, okay, I'm going to get the name wrong.
Wayne Gardner, Mick Doohan, they were two of my idols. Wayne Rainey was an incredible rider. Eddie Lawson. I mean, there were so many great riders, but Mick Doohan was obviously Australian, and he was our favourite.
And when you're younger, in those younger years, the Australian Post, you were working for them at one point, right? And kind of how would you describe that?
That was fun, I mean, I got to ride a motorcycle. Delivering mail on a motorcycle, what else better, But no, that's where I started out, delivering when I got my first full-time job. And, it was good, you'd start early, 5, and done by 1, so I could go and hit some golf balls after.
Well, I know you took a lot of courage coming to the States, right? Like you were, I think, only 21 or 22. Yeah. But what was that fire and that desire like once you got here? I mean, because I know it wasn't easy at first, right? Those first 2-3 months.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was actually the first few months it was fine because I was staying for the family from Australia. But after when they left, they had to go back to Australia. That's when I was kind of on my own. And I think, mate, as I tell people, if you're obsessed with something, you'll do it until you do it, and if it doesn't turn out, well, you got to do something else. So, golf was always my passion, and, I just thought that was the road I wanted to be, and I thought America was the place I needed to be to, do what I wanted to do. So, I wouldn't change anything.
And sometimes you got to sleep in your car as you're pursuing the dream. You got to do what you got to do, right?
Yeah, you do, I mean, there's a lot of guys, I know Gabriel Yosted, who's won twice on the PGA Tour. He slept in his car. I think most of us back then, at times we did. And, you just did, if you really loved it, you did what you had to do to try and accomplish your goals.
Well, looking back on your career, one PGA Tour win there, 2004, John Deere Classic. I'm just curious, like, how do you look at that, having one PGA Tour win? Is it mixed emotions? Do you wish you had more, less?
Well, I think that, I had one, but, you're one swing away from winning, I think, out a few seconds and thirds. And, you're not far away from winning 5 or 6, which would be a great career. Unfortunately, I had that accident in 06, and that kind of derailed me a little bit. But, I finished, 5th in the Masters, 3rd in US Open and in 05. And, I would have loved to have won a major before I was done. But as it turns out, it didn't happen. And, love to win one out here one day on the Champions Tour before I'm done. But, one win is obviously one in Europe. I beat Henrik Stenson in a playoff. That was nice, but
Scandinavian Masters, right?
Scandinavian Masters. So I think that we all know that golf's hard, and to win, a lot of things have to go your way. And I wouldn't change it though, man. I was fortunate to even, my goal was to play the PGA Tour, let alone win was obviously, a dream, and for it to happen was pretty exciting,
In the top 5 of the Masters of that place, and I know Australians love Augusta National, so for you to be able to perform like that, how'd that feel?
Yeah, I mean, the Masters to me is still my favourite tournament I've ever played. It's hard, but to finish 5th my first time there, I think Rod Pampling finished tied with me, and it was his first year there. So I mean, it's just a special place. As you know, we idolise Greg Norman, watching him so many things happened to him there, and I think we're all trying to be the first Australian to win there. But it was glad.
Scotty did it,
yeah,
right?
And I was so happy Adam won. I mean, they talk about a golf course that's suited for someone, but the Masters is a special tournament, that's for sure.
You talk about tying with Rob Pampling, your fellow Australian. What is it like, the camaraderie with some of the Australians out here on this Champions Tour?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I wouldn't say we're all very close. I mean, Richard Green and I are probably the closest out of all of us. But we all, we all go out for dinner once in a while, like Stewie Appleby. If someone's having some sort of function, we all seem to get together and do it. But now there's so many Australians on this tour, I think, on the Champions Tour, it's like 10 or 12 of them. So, it's becoming Australia's becoming more prevalent on this Champions Tour for sure.
You mentioned Stewie Appleby. Is he the one typically organizing dinners or paying for things, or what's going on?
He's not going to pay for anything. He can talk the most, which is funny on the golf course. Actually, he's changed it a little bit. He went from not saying much to talking a lot. But no, I think that whoever pamps, it just depends who's doing what. They organise it, and we had a great night at Newport Beach. Stewie knew a guy at Aston Martin there, so we had a meat pies, sausage rolls, and some things, that night. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. We'll segue briefly into kind of your practice, like how you like to practice. And I know there's different drills. Kind of take us through some of those drills. You got the one that goes through your belt loop here, right? That kind of helps with, is that hip turn?
Yeah, I mean, I do so many things for me. And listen, all my drills are really pertaining to the same thing. I don't center so well, and sometimes I get a very short turn and get my arms lifting. So you'll always see me with an alignment rod through my belt hoops or on my back to create some turn. And but it's just a feel. I think for everybody, it's hard to change unless you get the feel. And for me, that's the best way to do it, is through training aids and obviously getting a good coach.
And you have also the one that goes like it's on a bungee, right?
Yes.
And it goes through your back, and it's like helps you know how far your shoulder's turning. Is that what it is?
So when I get there, if my stick only turns to here, that means I didn't make a good shoulder turn. Whereas it goes to the ball almost, that means I made a good shoulder turn. And then I just try and stay in posture on the way through, so I can see it still pointing down. Because if I get a little lifty, obviously it levels out. So it's a good, visual. It's something I do pretty much almost every week.
What about in the short game? Are there good kind of competitive games to kind of keep you creative and get it going?
Yeah, I think that, short game is, it's such a feel, trying to teach short game, I would imagine it's pretty hard because everybody's got different ways of doing it. I actually like to practice with a belly putter because I struggle. I don't release the putter so well through impact. I get a little draggy with my left hand, so because I'm ambidextrous, my left hand's my strong hand, so I always fight that. So the belly putter seems to help me do that.
And what about just like, are there two or three things when you're on the range where you're thinking like maybe with your iron play that you want to dial in? Like, is it, are you trying not to release the club too soon? Or are there little things that you can kind of work on there?
Yeah, and I think the range is interesting. I usually go 45 minutes on practicing different drills to what I'm trying to work on, whether it be release the club, like you said, and then you got to, see if it's working. So 45 minutes, do your drills, and then now aim at targets and try and hit some shots. I think that's the best way to practice. And then if you're not hitting the shots, you go back and work on your technique again, and then go back and practice, test it, see if it's working, see what you're doing, because, and that's why I wish earlier in my career I practiced a little bit more on the golf course, because it's, you can get it on the range, and then sometimes your golf course is just a different animal because, uneven lies, et cetera. So I think that, if I look back on my career, I wish I played a little bit more than practiced. That's for sure.
Has there been, that sounds like great advice right there. Has there been good nuggets of wisdom you've heard over the years from different guys that's resonated with you when it comes to practice?
Yeah, I think probably those things. I mean, I think Nick
players would have come. Oh, Nick Price.
Yeah, Nick Price said something to me a long time ago, and he may not remember this, but I was walking to the range at Doral, and he was leaving, and I asked him how he's doing. Hey, Mark, yeah, good. And he just said, Mark, he goes, once you know what your faults are, they never leave you. He says, always stay on top of them. He says, I've been swinging it, I've worked on this for my whole life, and then he must have got off, and he thought he'd had it. You think after how many balls these guys have hit that you would get it, but once you don't pay attention to that little habit that you've always had, it can come back really quick. And that was the best advice I think I've ever received from anyone. And obviously Nick Price is one of the greatest players I've ever seen. So,
well, speaking of good advice, for the amateurs you see in pro-ams, chipping. Chipping's such a delicate thing, and there's so many different types of ways you could try to kind of go at it. But what would be your overall advice for chipping?
You got to read the lie. I mean, let's face it, especially in America. I mean, off a tight lie, I think not as much wrist break is good. But reading the lie, and then it's just practice, mate. I mean, you really got to work on, open the face, close the face. It's just really a lot of trial and error. And I think that the biggest thing is you got to read the lie, especially in the rough.
Last thing I want to say, the camaraderie on the Champions Tour overall, these guys, these faces you run into. Soren Kjeldsen said it's like a graduation party he's at now. It's very first event this week. For you, what does it feel like?
Yeah, I think that, you're with all the guys that you were playing with, when you were playing on the PGA Tour. So, is the Champions Tour, it's so competitive still. The guys are still grinding. They still want to win. But it's definitely a little bit more relaxed out there, that's for sure. I mean, we don't take things as serious, although I still do a little bit. But I think the hardest thing on the Champions Tour is you got kind of the Hall of Famers who are exempt out there forever. Then you got guys like myself, I have to perform every year, and if I don't, I lose my job. So there's different pressures, I think that, but in general, it's pretty relaxed out there.
Well, Mark, great to visit with you. Thanks for the time.
Yep, no worries. Thanks, mate.
Cheers.